Over to you, Brett.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Brad Boyson joining you from Fahad in I guess you could call it our studio for our HR Learn In. We're our studio that is Dubai, maybe by time zone. That's how we define studios these days.
Yeah.
Hello, Fahad. Good to see you.
Yeah, me too, Brad. Thank you very much. Nice to see you, everyone.
Yeah. So we were just talking before we started the camera that it's winter here in Dubai, so it might get down to 19 or 18 degrees Celsius tonight. So we're putting on the winter clothes, right, Fahad?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, 19, it probably could be silly for others, but for us, trust me, it's very cold, especially
Yeah,
for people get used to 50, 55.
I'm sure there's a lot of places in the world. I know Dorothy, we were talking to her last week and she was envious of our high teens in terms of winter temperatures. So
Yeah.
um, as we do every Tuesday, everyone, this is our learning seminar for our version 2.0 HR Learn In, and we're pleased and honored to be joined by Anita Maddock, joining us from India. Hello, Anita.
Hi, Brad, and hi, Fahad, and hi, John and Kimberly.
Well, welcome, and thank you so much for, as we say, donating your wisdom to our CSR initiative, which is upskilling and developing people during these sort of challenging, unique times. And as we said a few sessions ago, it does seem like that there's the positive of sort of a light at the end of the tunnel that's on the horizon that I do hope, and I know I'm speaking for myself, even in the past few days, thinking forward into 2021. And I have to say, I'm feeling very, very optimistic about how things are going. And I know different people are in different challenging circumstances, but yeah, how about you, Fahad? How are things from your point of view?
It's amazing. Started to raise up a little bit, so I could see good enhancement in terms of business, people, mindsets. Mental health has started to be a little bit better than it used to be in the mid of the crisis. So yeah, so I think it's almost going back to normal, but in a different lifestyle, not as it used to be, a new lifestyle. So I'm very optimistic and positive.
We have I think sharing with both our mentors and anyone watching too, maybe from outside the region, we have a big trade show that's actually happening live in Dubai right now. When I say live, I do mean not at this moment in time, but over these past 3 days, the big GITEX trade show, that's one of the largest events in the Dubai calendar. They're doing it with in-person attendance. And so hopefully that's the type of signal, the green shoots, the positive types of activity that demonstrates how things are gradually moving back to how things were before. So that we wanted to share that with everyone. But we, as mentioned, Anita Maddock joins us tonight, and I just love your topic, Anita. I think one thing I was thinking about before we started this session was how much we often have, the mentors and the individuals watching are sort of aligned already. It's not like it's some sort of debate where at the end we say, did we sway your opinion or not? Typically, those of us participating live have a very similar mindset. So that in itself changes the dynamic a bit. But I just loved your topic, if I'm sharing it, don't have a performance review discussion, have a coaching conversation instead. So I don't want to lead what you're going to say, but I think this is one of those examples where this was a topic before the pandemic, before the remote work from home world sort of pivot. But we've got some real world circumstances now, which suggests that there's some feedback that how this shift of mindset might be changing. So without further ado, maybe if you don't mind just doing a brief introduction for our audience about your background, Anita, and then we look forward to your presentation.
Yeah. Well, my name is Anita Madhok, and I'll introduce myself as we go along. I call myself an organizational psychologist and a global human resources professional. These two things are what I specialize in. It was a bit of an accident of fate, call it destiny or call it a grand master plan, that I found myself doing my graduate studies in psychology And since then, it's been a very leading part of my life. It's guided me all through different innings that I have played in my career. I've spent, I did in management a business degree from the Xavier Institute in Exelara in Jamshedpur in India, one of the top business schools. And I specialized in human resources, and in those days it was also called industrial relations. And then after that, I have worked in industry for a good 7-8 years before I took a short baby break. And during my baby break, I thought I need to study some more, and I went and enrolled for a PhD in psychology. And those 4 years of doing a PhD in psychology deepened my knowledge, my interest, and I think it was also part of the grand plan for my life, and how I found my vocation in working with people. And so after my PhD, I found myself in academics, and I was teaching at in both India and in Dubai. And in India, I was teaching at an NMIMS business school, one of the top 10 universities at that time. And I was also there. I was there for many, many years, and I don't want to say how many years, but many years. And I was also leading the business school as a dean of School of Studies, of Business Studies. And then I came into Dubai. You must have heard of the SP Jain Center of Management. In Dubai, I was the Dean Center of Excellence for HR there. And we decided to come back from Dubai for various reasons. And since then, I've been a free bird. I've been running for the last 12 years, Open Spaces Consulting. And in fact, I've got a card over here that says who I am. And somewhere along the line, I also did a lot of work with SHRM, where Brad and I first connected. And I was also the, master trainer for the GPHR certification with Lisbeth Klaus, who's been on this platform before. And I have many, many good associations with SHRM. And somewhere about 8 years ago, I said, I've done a lot of work in counseling, in mentoring, in enabling lives and students and enabling transformation. Let me get a certification in coaching. And that was a major, I would not call it a turning point, but I would say that was a major thrust. I mean, it's as if the thrust engines got kind of pushed into play. And what my life was meant to be actually started happening in the last 7 or 8 years. And everything else that I did with people, with human beings, kind of led up to this. And now it just grows further and further, further and further. It's been a great journey. And I myself have moved from performance review discussions to coaching conversations, if I was to say that. And there's a time and place for everything. And this is the time and this is the place for coaching conversations. And it's more relevant today, as Brad, you said, than ever before. So yes, I'm old school. When I mentioned to Fahad, I've got cards like this, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. He says, oh, that's very old school. I said, yes, I am old school. I've been around many years. And I remember my first teaching years, there was only not even a whiteboard, there was a blackboard, and there was a chalk, a white chalk with which we wrote. And so I call myself a chalk and talk teacher. And then somewhere along the line came PowerPoint and death by PowerPoint, and tyranny of the bullet points kind of started creeping in. And well, you have to adapt, even if it means having to come down a few pegs. So PowerPoint it was to be for many years, but now I'm finding I'd rather not. I'd rather just go with the flow and do what I have. So I've got charts like this, and it's old school, but it's just to make it very interesting, because in the past when we used to speak, we had these little cue cards, and they just had one word written on it, and those cue cards is what prompted us to speak for a long time, to share our knowledge. So I have cards like this. So don't have a performance review discussion, have a coaching conversation instead. And many of you will say, yeah, okay, we know that, we understand it intrinsically, we understand it intuitively. And so what is it really about? To me, it's not graduating from performance review discussion and evolving a little by little and changing. To me, it's a complete different universe. Having a performance review discussion and having a coaching conversation come from two very different universes, if I was to say. And that's the final nuance of it. And when each one of you in the audience and each one of you who would make this shift, it's a paradigm shift, you would understand that it's not gradual, it's a complete transformation. It's not that one thing morphs into another. It's a complete transformation that happens in you as a manager, in you as a leader, in you as a person, as a human being, in the way you connect with people and in the way in which you enable and facilitate other people. So, what is coaching? And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that one. And in India, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in India, the word coaching has many meanings. There's a local teacher down the line who, you know, helps kids prepare for their exams, and she's called a coach, and you go for a coaching class. And there is well, my house overlooks a Gymkhana swimming pool, and there is a coach over there who trains young kids to swim, and he produces national level champions every year for so many years without fail. And he's a wonderful coach. He produces national level champions in all categories, young children and older children and young adults and athletes of different age groups. He produces champions every year. That's also a coach. When you watch the FIFA World Cups or any other sports, you find the coach is the guy who's sitting in the trenches and who's watching the show, and he's a spectator and he's part of the game. But you know, in the football, when the team huddles together to discuss their strategy, the coach is not there. The coach is out there somewhere. They have to figure it out for themselves, what they have to do in that huddle and what they have to. So 2 years ago, I was coaching a group of women at a large firm here in India. And at the end of it, we just said, let's have a nice exercise where everyone says nice things to everyone else. Positive strokes exercise, because we had been through dragging up a lot of the negatives and working with them. And someone gave me anonymous feedback and it said, thank you for not solving our problems, but helping us get to that point ourselves. And to me, that is the answer to this question. What is coaching? Coaching is not about solving other people's problems. It's about helping them get to that point themselves. And that's a complete different world. And when this world opens up to you, there is learning and growth and evolution for both the parties, both you as well as the person you're coaching. So don't have a performance review discussion, have a coaching conversation instead. So what is coaching? Coaching is something that looks into the future. It visualizes the future and says, this is what the end game ought to look like. And let's keep looking at the future and look at where we are now and how do we get there. So it is in some ways what we call a future, it's a present plus, what we say present plus kind of situation, where we are today and plus where do we want to go. Performance review discussions in organizations, most of you are HR professionals would know, is present minus. It's about what happened in the past, maybe 1 year, maybe 6 months, maybe longer than that. So it's present minus. So that's a big difference, isn't it? You're not talking about what happened in the last 1 year. You're only going to talk about what's happening in the future and long distance future, perhaps. That's a big this difference between what's a performance review discussion. Coaching is solution oriented. I'm a graduate of the Erickson School of Coaching, which is based in Vancouver in Canada, and I'm Erickson certified coach, and And it's in fact called solution-focused coaching. We look at solving problems. We look at solving issues. We look at solutions to any issues that we are facing. And whether it's a performance issue or whether it's a competence issue, whether it's an enabling empowerment issue, whatever is the issue, leadership style issue, so many things. A coaching encourages a person to be the best version of himself. Now, this is a much used term. How can you be a better version of yourself? How can you be a good version of yourself? But yes, it's true. It brings out the best in you. It doesn't tell you that something's wrong in you and that you got to be fixed. It's not something that tells you that these are your weaknesses or your areas of improvement that you've got to set them right. Coaching helps you see, okay. So just last week I had a girl in my coaching. This was a group coaching that I was doing, not in one-to-one. There's a difference between group coaching and one-to-one coachings. There were just 5 people in the group, and this girl was saying, everyone says how stubborn I am, and how rigid I am, and how stubborn things can be. And once I put my mind to something, I will not see left or right. I will not listen to anybody. I will not listen to myself either. I just have to go out there and do what I said I would do. So I said, why don't you make a transformation of what that stubbornness is into what the word determination means. So instead of saying I'm stubborn, if you start saying I'm determined, it might make a difference. And determination is what success is all about. So I'm not asking you to correct that weakness, what was labeled as a weakness. I'm not asking you to correct that. I'm not saying there's something wrong with you, you're stubborn. You've got to change that and not be stubborn and be flexible and be something that you really are not. So I'm telling you that you've got to be more, make your stubbornness work for you. So I always say, make yourself work for yourself. Who you are, you need to make it work for yourself. So everyone has some strengths and some weaknesses and some, what is typically, the subject matter of a performance review discussion. And everyone has that. And I just simply say that if you cannot transform what internally you hold in a negative way into making it something that works for you, like stubbornness can be determination as well, as 2 sides of the same coin. And if you can't do that, then let's see how you manage that. So if there is a part of you that's becoming an obstacle to yourself, this is it. And it's like a mountain and you're like a river. When you're flowing in the river never goes up the mountain and comes down. No, that never happens. That's against the law. And you can keep banging against the mountain, but the mountain may or may not. I don't know if you've ever seen that one film that came about 6-7 years ago. It was called The King's Speech. Right till the end, the king was stammering and stuttering, and he continued to stammer and stutter. He could never get rid of it. But then when the river encounters that big obstacle, it finds its way around and then moves forward. So like the river, if there is a part of you that's not working for you, how do you find your way around and continue to move forward? So that's a little bit also what coaching does, provided of course you have the right coach, and every coach has different outlooks in life. Coaching can become sometimes very transactional. So it's about saying, okay, 6 months from now, I want to have, I want to have so many dollars revenue, or 1 year from now, I want to have, 5 team leaders to whom I can delegate work to. Okay, so that could be like a future-focused, solution-oriented goal that you might want to set for yourself. And then very often coaching, particularly when coaches are young and new, they tend to get caught up with, okay, what are the action steps that I need to take to get to that point? let me first do this, and then I do this, and then I do the other thing, and then this, and step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and eventually I'll get to the goal that I'm setting for myself. So coaching can also get very transactional in that sense. It can get very, action oriented and very do's and don'ts oriented kind of thing. But true coaching is actually transformational. So I don't know if you heard of the neurological levels. It's just a model of understanding levels of being, starting from things that I do and operational levels to, things that I want to things that I am, and then right down to what are my values, what are my vision, what is my self-concept of myself. So a good coach, a true coach, will help the coachee move up the neurological levels to a point where they're talking about who they are. And it's about visualizing that solution or that future or that. It's not necessarily, and it can also include your $100 million goals, and it can also include your team members' goals, or it can also include organizational level kind of goals as well. But coaching is also about that. I want to spend some time talking about performance review discussions versus coaching conversations. It's necessary to get into a debate and polarize issues so that one can see things in a good perspective. So I already said a few things. Performance review discussions about the past, and coaching is about the future. I already said that. Performance review discussion is about what is expected of the person. What is expected from you? Did you meet our expectations or not? This particular job had these particular goals and aims, and did you meet those expectations or not? Did you fulfill your role or not? Did you take the role that we were giving you or not? So it's about what was expected. Coaching is about what is possible, not what is expected. So I don't take a role, I make a role for myself. So in a performance review discussion, the framework is, okay, here's a person, let me give him his role and let me, advise him what he ought to do. And so person becomes a role taker. So I'm the sales manager of an organization. How do I take that role upon myself? But in a coaching conversation, a person becomes a role maker. So he's not just taking his goals, targets, etc. He's actually making and creating his role for himself. So there's a very clear and distinct difference. Performance review discussion takes stock of the situation. Okay, what did we do? How did we fare? How could we do it better? And things that worked last 1 year and things that didn't work in the last 1 year. Whereas coaching conversation solves problems. A performance review discussion says what happened and what did not happen, whereas a coaching conversation says, how could we have done it better? How could we have resolved this issue? And why did it happen this way? And why did it not happen that way? So you're getting into a problem solving mode. You're identifying causes and effects and, understanding a deeper level of the issues that you're dealing with. A performance review discussion gives direction and points you in that direction. So it's like when you're riding a horse in the horse races. Have you ever been to the horse races on the race course, the Great Indian Derby and so many others? And you'll find that these horses have these blinkers on the sides of their eyes. And the jockey has got the reins, and whichever way he points the horse will run in that direction. So that's a little bit of a metaphor for a performance review discussion. It makes you into a racehorse. It makes you into a racehorse, and it puts you on the track and says, okay, this is your track, and now this is the direction you have to go in. And you are a racehorse, and you're a great performer, and you stay on track, you're successful, you achieve a lot, and you get all the accolades, and it's a win-lose situation. If you don't win the cup, then you don't get anything. And sometimes you have to dope yourself into, getting to that goal. You have to psych yourself out into, and you have to be stressful as well. And it takes its toll. You burn out eventually as well. And particularly, lots of people, they reach the midlife crisis and they say, look, I can't work in a system and an organization anymore. I have to be a free bird. And so a performance review discussion gives direction, whereas a coaching conversation gives space. It gives you space. You can spread your wings, you can fly, you can be whatever you want to be and whoever you wish to be. It gives you so much space. There's no one direction. The whole universe is possible. And that's what coaching is about. Performance review discussions establishes hierarchy, which is very important. A hierarchy is a very important part of getting things done. And it exists everywhere. There is no such thing as total equalization anywhere in the world. So we have to accept that there is a hierarchy, and a performance review discussion drives that hierarchy. It pushes the hierarchy through. A coaching conversation recognizes that people have authority and they have power and they have intrinsic influencing abilities, which they need to work with and exercise and create that particular quality of leadership. But it equalizes with individuals. It establishes an emotional connect and a way of understanding, a mutuality that emerges. So that's what happens in a coaching conversation. There is a big difference between the kind of language that we use in performance review discussions and the language that we use in coaching conversations. Everyone's heard of this? SMART goals. Who hasn't heard of SMART goals? Everyone's heard of. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound, and there's another R over there. Realistic and relevant and time bound. So this is what kind of goals that get set in a typical performance review discussion. They're SMART goals, specific, numerical, so that at the end of the year, when you're taking stock of that SMART goal, there is no doubt about what you contributed. It's very legalistically worded, those SMART goals. And believe me, I spent more than half my career in enabling people to write smarter and smarter goals every time. And it was good in those days because that was a different time and a different era. But a different era is coming now. And well, the specific measurability, they help you defend yourself in a court of law and say, hey, listen, this is what I contributed specifically, measurably, and there's no dispute about that. And therefore, I must receive this reward or this particular bonus or incentive or whatever. So there's no substitute for SMART goals because they're hard, they're concrete, they're written down. You cannot change those. At best, you can negotiate, and if things like COVID pandemics happen, you can renegotiate those goals when there's a force majeure. But then they're SMART and specific, they're legal. They address the left brain. They're logical, they're rational, they're very numerical and measurable. They address your left brain, and the left brain is great because that's where the race horses work from. There is something that I've coined or I've learned it from one of my mentors, and we call this SAF goals. In India, the word SAF in Hindi language means clear. There's no mist, there's no haze, and there's no ambiguity.
Sorry, Anita, the audio, I think, at least for me, just broke up as you were saying the definition of SAF. So I want to make sure that we get that audio. So can you say that again? What's the definition of SAF in Hindi?
In Hindi, the word SAF means clear. I can see everything clearly. It's transparent. It's, there's no mist, there's no fog, there's no ambiguity. But these are called SAF goals. And these goals are very expansive. They address a broader part of who you are. And when we get a person into coaching, we get them to visualize who they are in a future situation, in a future scenario. So the first word S stands for the scene. So we need to visualize the scene. What is the scene? What's the scenario? Who are, what's the place I am in 1 year from now, or 6 months from now, or 5 years from now, whatever is the time frame I'm addressing. So which is the place I am in? Describe the scene. Am I in the hills and in a tent camping in the Andes mountains, or somewhere in the Himalayas meditating, or am I in a lovely corner office in a business block, or am I sitting in a library and reading to my heart's content, or am I out on a picnic with my family and kids? So we get you to visualize the scene that you are in as a future goal. And it's very clear. We get very specific on the colors and the people and the objects and the scenario. It's very specific and very smart also in a way. But it's about the scene. The A is for actors. Who are the actors in the scene? I'm the protagonist. I'm the hero or the heroine. And who are the other actors? Is it my boss? Is it my mom? Is it my family? Is it my spouse? Is it my kids? Is it my team members? Is it my mentor? Is it just me, myself? Who are the actors? And let's talk about these real people. There are real people in your life, and they're real. Let's talk about those, and let's talk about them very clearly. And what are they saying to you? What are you saying to them? And what's happening here? And what happened before that? What's going to happen from here on? And what's the conversation going on in that scene? Make it very clear to the extent possible. And then the A is for actions. The second A is for actions. So what are the actions? What are the things you're doing? And what are the things that you did before that to get to this point? And what are the things that you're likely to do? So I'm going to make my $100 million. And then what are you likely to do with that? And what are the things you did before you did that? And, so actions, specific actions. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you doing at all levels, of your being? So what are the actions? And then the last F stands for feelings. Stands for feelings. Because this entire SAF goal addresses your right brain, not your left brain. It addresses your right brain, and that's where your feelings reside, and that's where, so what are you feeling in this scenario? And that's the biggest future anchor you can create. There's an anchor out there in the future. You can create that anchor, and you can move yourself towards those feelings. Maybe today I'm feeling very stubborn. Okay, there I'm feeling very determined, to take the same example that I was talking to you about. So, yes, SAF goals. SAF goals. Scene, actors, actions, and feelings. So what are your feelings? And get them to feel those feelings so intently and so intensely that once that feeling is anchored inside you, and it will never leave you as a pull to the future. It will pull you into the future. That feeling is what will make it all happen. So we move towards SAF goals. Well, that's quite a bit about coaching. And I have just 2 cards more. On one card is some things are very important drivers. Now, we have all heard about Darwin's theory of evolution, and I don't need to repeat that. But Darwin says that the biggest motivator is self-preservation. Self-preservation of the species. whatever species does whatever it takes to adapt to the environment and live, it is that species will survive because they are working for their self-preservation. What the entire world today is doing, the vaccine, etc., is the entire urge for self-preservation. Otherwise, our species is in danger of becoming extinct, and losing its numbers. But I'm a psychologist, and it's just my theory, and it's nobody else's. Nobody taught me. I believe self-concept preservation is a far bigger driver than self-preservation. Self-image preservation, who I am. People will go to any length. They will kill themselves just to preserve their self-concept, their self-image. You don't mind killing yourself to preserve your self-concept. To me, this is a far by degrees more, greater anchor for survival. And coaching is about creating that anchor for your learning growth and for your transformation and for your leadership. What is my self-concept? Who do I want to be? Who was it that I was meant to be? And when you look into the future, you can be anything. You can be anything you want to be. And it does happen. It does come true. And many of you will say, how to implement? And that's my last one. And how to implement? Well, there are many levels at which it can happen. It's a lot about what we call leadership coaching, which is what we specialize in leadership coaching, what I do. And it's not necessarily leadership doesn't mean you have to talk to CEOs and board of directors and direct reports, which we also do. I'm not saying we don't do that. It's a big chunk of what we do, but we also talk to multiple levels of leadership. It's about enabling people to be a better version of themselves. And it can begin at a unit of one, because the unit of one is the level of change. One person is the unit of change. It's in one individual can change himself, and at least in his circle of influence, make the difference. If I'm an HR manager, if I'm talking to CHROs, I would say, yes, let's look at talking about how do I create a coaching culture in the organization. But that's a larger organization development exercise. How do I create a coaching culture in the organization? It's big. And there has to be a lot of ground prepared. Like any OD intervention, there's a lot of ground to be prepared, a lot of buy-ins to have, and then you have to sell some, and you have to tell some, as well as, inspire some. But I would simply say, if you nominate a bunch of willing people for a coaching transformation exercise, that's all it would take to make a difference in the world at that level. Because ultimately the unit of change is the individual. That's the ultimate final unit of change. And there are ways in which we design and implement interventions that enable organizations on a large scale as well. But we do have a package of coaching, and we design the package depending upon the client needs. Well, sometimes it spans over a year, sometimes it's about 6 months, and sometimes it's longer. And sometimes, well, I do believe that 8 to 10 coaching sessions, intervention per person. A person is set in a new direction, and for the next 4 or 5 years, you don't need to go back and keep re-coaching that person. Every 5 or 6 years, a person needs to go back and reflect and rethink and recreate and perhaps reinvent themselves and then move forward. But so there is a certain coaching packages that we work out, and we design the interventions based upon the client's needs, and there are off-the-shelf packages also available. So just to close, these are my contact details. If you want to note it down, well and good, please do. The best way to reach me is either on Facebook or LinkedIn, and those messages always come through. Doesn't matter your emails change or your phone numbers change or your address changes. those ones are there for now, at least till Mark Zuckerberg and all these other fellows are still around. But for now, those are the ways to reach me. So over to you, Brad. Do you like to pop lots of questions?
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Anita. And I just want to reinforce to anyone who's watching this live or in the archive is, when we put together the different mentor programs, we genuinely hope that individuals have takeaways from these events. And I just want to thank you, Anita, because I got several from this presentation. And it's, coming back to this idea of SMART goals. Wow. Do we ever instill that, in the HR community? And it's like, it's pushed into people's minds. And you just got me thinking so much about where's the emotion in that. If we want people, not, and that's one of the reasons why, like you say, that it's more historical, it's more past orientated, because by definition, all of those 5 elements don't connect with the person in a human way. And it just reminded me of, my first academic studies were in finance. And what I learned as an outcome was that the function of finance was created by owners to have agency in the organizations. So I'm an owner and I'm going to put people in organizations that look after my assets. And when you compare that to HR, we've never had that sort of pivot where we've said, maybe we're not designing things for the right outcomes. Maybe we are beholden to a certain model of HR that's not necessarily in everyone's best interest. And that's what you got me really thinking about. So thank you for those thoughts. And if maybe I can start with one of my questions. I've got quite a few sort of notes, but how can we, because I know you and many of the mentors are also overlap in the academic sense, how can we do a better job in the academic environment to prepare future HR leaders for this shift in mindset? Because nothing that you described was taught to me in university, per se. I was, it was a different model of HR. So given your experience, given your background, how can we do a better job of, in the academic sense, instilling some of this wisdom?
Well, I think the hard skills that we taught in the future, in the past, some of them are going to remain.
Sure.
And in fact, we cannot escape those hard skills, because I know a lot of people love to teach soft skills and say the hard skills are not required. But I think artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and financial modeling, and all those hard skills must remain. Data analytics must remain in a business school curriculum. I'm so glad you asked that question, because I just addressed that in another forum a month ago, which I was speaking on. So the hard skills have to remain. But there are many soft skills which are now becoming hard skills in a way. Mm-hmm. So because they're going digital, you can learn a soft skill in a digital mode, which I still shudder sometimes, with that, because I'm from the old school. But there are many soft skills which are also becoming hard. But I do believe some of the softer skills that cannot be taught in a digital way, or have yet to be conceived of in a digital transmission format, are going to be very, very precious. And there's going to be a great premium on teaching of those skills, or imparting those skills. And those are the skills some of us may want to continue working with, because that involves people, and that involves interactions, that involves human interface. And so there are many of those, which will continue to remain soft skills: the art of negotiating, and the art of
even myself, one of the expressions I developed a few years ago that I shared, and I probably shared it in this learn-ins before, is if something can be automated, it was never HR in the first place. And some people buy into that right away, but others push back because their definition of HR has always been so transactional.
Yeah.
But if people got into HR for the soft skills that really can add value, as those become more measurable and quantifiable and augmented is probably the best single word, that doesn't take away from the uniqueness of the living and human condition. And so I stand by my comment, and I think it aligns with many of the points you were making. So I don't want to hog the questions. I want to, at this point, ask any of the mentors who are on right now if you have any questions for Anita at this time.
Go ahead, Kimberly. You want to go first? No. Two quick comments, Anita, and I'd appreciate your comment on it. Thank you. That was great. I enjoyed it immensely, and I wish I'd thought that through as well as you have, because I could have done with that. Because I'm likewise old school, and I thought I was doing a great thing way back when everything was highly codified. The GE school of fill the form in, check the dots, and all that kind of thing, etc. One of the things I did,
believed it.
Yeah, and I thought I was a hero.
We bought into that story.
Oh, I did totally. I lived in for 25 years in the city of the headquarters of GE, and lots of my colleagues were General Electric high executives and things like that. So I in my own humble little way, and I don't have the training or skill that you have, I tried to move the focus from being the rating system to being more of forcing a dialogue. And that was hard enough in itself, to force managers and executives to actually have a meaningful dialogue. That took about 2 or 3 years to move the culture of a company to say, this is not, as you say, just a kind of one-way teacher doing an exam rating on your past. It's rather how to open up a dialogue where there's pushback, where the employee says, yeah, but you didn't make those objectives clear, or you gave me conflicting priorities, or all those other things. So I found there's a big reluctance of even very good managers to have an open dialogue. So we hadn't moved as far as coaching, but we're trying to move that way, I think.
Yeah.
So
the manager as a coach.
Yeah. And have dialogue. Yeah. And it was, and I say there's still, I don't know if it's the same in India. There's just still a reluctance in America for American managers to get into, as Brad says, anything remotely touchy-feely or people related. It's like, I'd rather fill the form in and just run the numbers and say, you made it or you didn't make it.
Yes. So yes, we'd rather deal with the process rather than with the person, because it's easier that way, because we don't know the real way. So these are things that we can start inculcating in an organization at different levels and start bringing that change in. Yes, it's definitely possible.
Kimberly, I think, did you have a question for Anita?
Actually, more of a comment, Anita. I just wanted to say a thank you. This has been absolutely amazing to listen to you and get to meet you and spend a little bit of time with you. And I completely agree with John. We absolutely need more of this messaging, especially in the Americas. I do work globally with corporations, and I definitely agree with John, again, seeing the need more here to break down the resistance to deal with the person directly. And I loved the simplicity of what you said in the very, very beginning, when you said specifically, change the thought process internally to the person that's being coached from being stubborn to being persistent, or something along those lines. I'm not sure that you used the word persistent.
Determined.
Determined, yes.
Yes. There is this concept of neuroplasticity, which is how your brain is wired, inside. It comes from the world of neurosciences, and I've done a lot of work on that too. And it's about, rewiring the brain. And it begins with the language we use. So if, for example, I keep saying I'm stubborn, and then, that kind of the wires, then links in your brain, connections get made, and it stays very hard the more you drive that current. So it's about now saying it differently and saying, hey, listen, I'm going to be determined about this. I'm going to be persistent about this, you know. And the minute you change your language sometimes and you change the meanings that you can hold around that, new connections are made in your brain, and that's called neuroplasticity. And the new connections that are made in your brain now become your new reality. And when those become your new reality, everything changes. Everything changes. Without you having to really necessarily yourself and be something you were not, but you're still the same person, but everything still changes.
Yes, well, I completely agree with you. I just finished a master's level certification in neurolinguistics programming. So I'm an NLPCP. So I completely agree with you. But wow, how do we get this messaging out to the globe? That's the dilemma. We'll talk offline, Anita. Thanks, Fahad and Brad. I don't want to take all of your airtime here.
We have Mahatma Gandhi as an example in our country, and everyone knows him. The day he said, quit India to the British, and he says, I will not have the British. The day he started, he did not know he's going to achieve it, did he? But he did. But the day he started with one small step, you know? And
yes.
It's about how you eat that big dinosaur.
Much.
It's about eating that big dinosaur one bite at a time.
Wonderful thoughts. Yes, thank you. And Fahad, we have some questions from the audience.
Yeah, I think we have 3 good questions basically. Beside of I have my own question. But
yeah, of course.
To defer my questions for the audience. So I'll leave the questions for the audience as a priority. So we have Sutapa. He says, how to show the benefits of coaching to the top management, and how we would like them to see the benefit out of it, the investing out of it. And I think this is one of the main questions usually come in the coaching industry, is how to convince our mentors, or basically our bosses, our top management, our stakeholders for that.
You begin by a coaching session for them. Have a coaching conversation. Have a coaching conversation with them. And once they find the space and they find themselves able to visualize themselves as leaders, they will invariably, almost always, visualize themselves as leaders who are more enabling and who are more facilitative and everything that coaching does. So have a coaching conversation with them. And there's a different way to have a coaching conversation. That's another story altogether, another webinar altogether on how to have a coaching conversation. You listen more and you bring more, you facilitate more. So there's a whole lot more there. So have a coaching conversation.
That's amazing. We have another question from Fiza saying that how does one initiate self-realization for the ones who are not motivated at work to actually be more potential?
Well, this is not something you can initiate in another person. This has to come from the inside. It has to come from the inside. And sometimes, you know, I find that I've got managers in my coaching program, and it's maybe 7 or 8 sessions. And it's not before the last session, one girl called me up and said, you know, now the penny drops, because now I had to do my self-review, and now I realized what goals I was talking about, SAF goals and all I was talking about. Now I realize I've had 6 sessions and it didn't strike me then, but now it does. So you just keep providing a lot of water to the horses and make them as thirsty as you can. And that's something that maybe they will drink. So it cannot be something that can be done from the outside in. You know, the doors to self-realization open from inside out, not from outside in.
I see. I think we have also a question from Sayani. He says, can you share your views between coaching and mentoring from the psychology point of view? Or the
Oh yes, there's very clear difference. There's a very clear difference between coaching and mentoring. Mentor is a person who's a specialist in your field. So if, for example, you're working in a pharmaceutical industry, so a mentor is a person who's a specialist in the pharmaceutical industry, and he's a great leader, he's a thought leader, and he's got knowledge. And and wisdom and experience of that sector to impart to you. So that's a mentor. And a mentor will tell, will advise, will guide, will direct you. And a coach doesn't necessarily have to be a specialist in your domain. In fact, it's better if he knows nothing about what your universe is about, because that way he remains more in his coach position and can facilitate your journey forward. And a coach is just someone who asks you very powerful questions that move you forward in your journey. So there's a universe of a difference between a mentor and a coach. There's
a massive difference. I totally agree with that. Okay, I think we're done with audience questions, so I will start with my own questions. So Anita, I do have kind of questions. Is there any correlationship, or a connection, or even a place of the neurological levels within the levels of Maslow hierarchy? Especially when we know Maslow hierarchy, it has its self-realization or actualization at the top.
Yeah.
So does it have any connection from that perspective, or they're totally different thing, or is there any way to connect them with each other?
Now that you tell me, there does seem to be some striking similarity, but it's the first time I'm addressing that. But the neurological levels are about, I don't know, I think there would be some similarity, but I'll have to research that question and come back with because it's a theoretical question, and there could be semantic differentials there. The meanings of the words that are used to describe the neurological levels model and the Maslow's need hierarchy.
Oh, okay. That's right. No, because the reason that I ask, because we understand that the Maslow hierarchy, it has a human needs, it has a psychology perspective, it has a lot of self-fulfillment aspects that the person has to achieve. So for people, based on my point of view, for people to stand understanding all these kind of their own personal vision and evaluation and goals in life and the values that they admire, I think they have to reach to a certain level so they can realize. Obviously, there are certain areas that you can't think about the future if you're unable to provide food for your kids, or you're unable even to have a safety environment within you. So this is the question: is there any correlation? Probably, I don't know. I need to do the own research also. At the same time, is where does it fit? If there is any relation or any place within the whole hierarchy. So just that's the whole point of question.
Yep, you got that right. Yes.
I don't know. So we're in the last 2 minutes. I don't know, you guys. Brad, I think we have one more question.
One more question, yeah.
Just bomb up. Is I think from Anonymous. Okay, how to realize the inner strength to come up as a leader?
How to realize the inner strength to come up as a leader? Well, there is a discovery. And there's a courage in that discovery, and you have to go within yourself to come up with your own answers. So it's a bit like answering the question with the question itself.
Yeah.
So in order to realize your inner strength as a leader, you've got to go inward and look inside at what your strengths are. So, and it's about finding meanings and different ways of holding the same part of yourself in different ways, giving new meanings to who you already are.
Yeah, I mean, if I can add, Anita, because again, these are very complex questions, and I mean that in the best kind of way. These are the questions we should be asking. Is you said something earlier about the SAF sort of goals, and right away for me that connected with the Simon Sinek start with why. And the reason I mention this now is because this question is, everyone has a different journey to that sort of the penny dropping, as you use the metaphor. And I think about myself at one point in my life being much more risk averse, and then either sometimes pushing myself or being pushed to try something that made me uncomfortable. you know, and I'll use language for example. You know, I studied Japanese in my mid-20s, and I was so afraid of making mistakes that I was very conservative in my learning. And as I got older, I realized that was a huge learning mistake, because you have to not be afraid to make mistakes for that penny to drop and keep trying and trying and trying. And I'm at a stage now that I'm older, I'm much more willing to make mistakes on the feedback loop that is, okay, I'm going to get it wrong sometime. I might even embarrass myself sometimes, but in the discovery journey, I'm actually going to find some things that I would not have otherwise found. And so I don't know what the algorithm is for that, but I'm just sharing sort of my own parallel answer to the question, because it is a very good question. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, the doors to that inner strength and inner realization open from inside out.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I've in the HR space, there's some, you know, maybe it's marketing, you know, outside in, inside out, and I'm an inside out. For both are relevant if in a sense of an organization and social behavior. But when you get into the real change, the substantive change, the transformational, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think Fahad also said the same, is it comes from the inside out.
Exactly.
But the good thing is that today's new Gen Z or Gen Alpha, whatever you want to call them, are more inclined to opening the doors from within, as compared to our earlier generations, who are very close to you know, and very bounded in their willingness to explore beyond the normative.
Any additional sources or references that you can point our audience to, Anita, that to find out more in this topic?
Well, I'm a graduate of the Erickson School of Coaching. So I would say, yes, try and check out the website there and maybe subscribe to their newsletters. You'll get to know a little bit more and more about what coaching conversations are about. And of course, the International Coach Federation, which I'm certified to be a PCC level coach, they also have a lot of resources online. And find someone who can coach you and learn more about what coaching is about. Experience one for yourself.
Very good, very good. Any final thoughts, Fahad?
No, I think from my side, it was a great engagement session. And I think obviously, as Anita said, this topic is endless topic. So whatever we want to do, whatever we're going to cover, it's not going to be easy, because a topic will open another door and another door and another door. So yeah, and I think the future is coaching and mentoring. That's what I feel. And both of them, they are totally different world and industries. So yeah, I'm looking forward for what's going to come next from the coaching, and to see how we could recruit the coaching concept into the business for the business benefit.
I think it's coming. Good.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of at our time limit. So I want to thank Anita for her presentation and contribution. I want to thank the mentors in attendance today and those of you watching live and in archive, and encourage you to share, to make people aware of this program. That's what we're doing, is we're building a community. And I've learned so much over the course of this. And I think that's part of what professionals do, is they develop each other. So I'm going to wrap things up again with our tagline, and remind everyone that HR Learning, we're all about tuning in, skilling up, and paying it forward. Thank you, and good night from everywhere.
Good night.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Goodbye.
Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
Thank you.